it's genuinely painful to consider a worldview that is counter to your own. People's egos are grasping firmly on what they've been taught their whole life they're supposed to believe. This is what I said in the beginning, Danny, is if we want to awaken, if we want to understand what's really going on here, we have to humble ourselves to higher forces. We have to understand there are things out there that are bigger than us.
Well, even the Vatican has accepted the idea of aliens now. Like, I forget who it was, but somebody at the Vatican was explaining how, we can't limit, if you are religious and you believe in God and you believe in a higher creator, like, you can't limit that just to Earth, right? Like, you can't limit God's creativity just to human beings. There has to be, you have to give him the benefit of, whoever it is, the benefit of the doubt to have created something outside of what we see every day on planet Earth.
Right. Yeah.
And that's coming from the Vatican. If there is something that is spiritual that people have witnessed, like you and your dad are witnessing, is it possible that there also is a bad version of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There has to be. If it's just the nature of reality. If there's something good, there's something bad. And it's like there's varying degrees of that. But it's like, it's like the absence of hot is cold, right? Or the absence of love is fear. It's, yeah, of course. I do think that there's some negative entities and things like that. But I don't think it's anything to worry about. I really don't. I've never come face to face. I mean, I've seen some shadow entities and things like that. Like, I've been around people where I've seen things that were attached to them. But I think for anybody out there who's curious about entities and if you're like, would I experience a good one? Would I experience a bad one? This and that and the other. I think that depends on what kind of person you are and particularly what you're going through. What energy you're putting out. If you're a good, kind, loving, joyful, positive person, why would you be worried about negative entities, right? But let's say, somebody who's deep into a very serious addiction or abuse problem or some sort of very negative, violent scenario or, spouse abuse or whatever scenario in your head that's really bad. Well, maybe then I'd be worried about some sort of negative entity. I mean, it really depends on you.
Did anybody you ever talk to, like some of these NASA people or anybody else, did they ever say anything to you about negative, like evil entities?
Yeah.
Or bad ones? What would they say about that?
Well, at Skinwalker Ranch, that's one thing Colonel Alexander told us was, like, at Skinwalker Ranch, they were having some pretty spooky experiences, like things like much about the ranch, right?
Yeah.
How like multiple billionaires have bought it since then.
Yep.
To run experiments there, and that's one of the things is like they constantly are trying to like gotcha with the phenomenon, they're trying to like trick it. They're trying to get it on camera. They're trying to like they just think that it isn't aware, I guess. But the beings would like constantly outsmart them and do things like disable their cameras and turn off the lights and just do things to really scare them. Definitely harm some animals, things like that.
Harmed animals?
From what I've been told, yeah. There's been some animals that have been harmed at Skinwalker.
Yeah, like the cattle mutilations. Do you think that has to do with these entities at all?
I don't know, because it's like the idea about the phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch. Some people say it's because of Ute, Native American black magic practices from centuries ago. Really dark kind of things lingering there. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have much experience with negative entities. I only have experience with positive entities. Right. I can't say why that's there, why bad things are happening, but I don't think people should worry about negative entities. It's just like it says in the Bible, right? We have dominion over spirits. You don't have to be Christian for that to be true. I'm not Christian, but I believe it to be true. I think we have power and dominion over entities.
Really?
Yeah.
How do we have power and dominion over them?
I believe we're very special. I think we're very, very special. I think that there's a lot more to being made in the image of God than people realize. I think we are literally made in the image of God. As a matter of fact, if there was a piece of wisdom that I would love to leave with everybody, that I would love everybody to contemplate on and really study this phrase and understand what it means and where it comes from, you'll find that the Rosicrucians and even the Freemasons and all these secret societies are obsessed with this phrase because of its importance. And it's as above, so below. And it's the concept that the microcosm mirrors the macrocosm. Or in other words, if you think really hard about space, right? You think about galaxies and solar systems, how they have an inherent order to them at the highest level, right? But then you think really small, and you think about the cells in your body and the atoms. They have a similar order. At every plane of reality, higher and lower on this infinite sliding scale, on this Fibonacci scale, so to speak, right? This spiral pattern, Matt. It's fractal. Reality is constantly fractal, all the way up and all the way down. And I believe that that is true in every dimension and in every plane. And I do believe that we are fractals of God, that we are all infinite sparks of God. It's like the ancient Hindus said, it's Indra's net, right? You have this one original consciousness, and it's personified, or not personified, but shown as this net, and then you have a drop of dew on every intersection of the net, and the sun is shining on the water, and that sun is equally reflecting off every piece of dew. That's me and you. That's all of our consciousness reflecting. There's only one light, right? It's God. It's the mind. It's the universe, whatever. You call it whatever you want to call it. We said this in the beginning. It doesn't really matter so much how you believe it. Reality is reality. You can kick and scream about my God's better than yours all day, but something's up there. I tend to think this is how it works. It doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care what you believe. It cares how you are. Cares how you vibrate. Cares how you act.
Right.
What you put out into the world. But anyway, so I believe that I think that we are reflections. I think the material world is only a mere reflection of the higher eternal world. Another example of this, Plato, most famous philosopher of all time. He had a whole story about it called the allegory of the cave.
Yep.
He's like, imagine you're in a cave and the sun is shining in the cave. The sun represents the eternal reality. It's invisible, so to speak, but also like it's kind of the source of light. It's symbolized by the sun. It's shining into the cave. Me and you are in the cave. We see the shadows on the wall. Me and you, we live here in the cave, symbolizing, material reality. We think the shadows are the real thing, but really it's out there in another dimension or outside of the cave, right? And it's like you have all these different stories around the world basically saying like, this is the illusion. There is something real. There's something else. There's something else that's not the illusion. We are in the illusion. Or as the Hindus would say, we are all in the dream of Brahma. We're in the mind of God. Or as the Hermetists and the Rosicrucians would say, the universe is simply the mind of God, and we're each a thought in it. Okay, so the question is, why do we have dominion over spirits? Because of that. Because we are a piece of the Creator. We are linked to the mind of God through our mind, because we are a piece of that mind, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
That's why we have ESP. That's why we have psychic abilities. That's why healings and miracles occur, because we are divine. I believe we're divine. I think we all are. I think that's the truth about all of it. All religious myth, all the wisdom traditions, and every bit of it. I think that we are all special fractal pieces of, you could say, the God mind or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter.